Just one last time for those that are just joining, you will receive an invitation to join as a panelist from me, which would allow you to be able to turn on your video if you would like, so that the Election Commission and the public present can see you. That's optional. You don't have to accept that. If you've already received that invitation and I send it again, apologies. I can't tell who I've sent it to and who I haven't. So bear with that. Thank you. And just one other reminder that all of the materials that are going to be discussed today or that have been submitted for discussion today can be found at washtenaw.org/elections. There's also a direct link that I'll put into the chat right now, so you can click on it and go directly to the recall activity for 2021, including today's meeting.
Ed?
Go ahead.
We have some documents that we were going to display during the hearing. Do you want me to send those to you after or before?
I can.
And some videos as well.
Yeah, it looks like I can't allow you to share your screen. So yes, go ahead and send them directly to elections@washtenaw.org.
So you won't be able, so I won't be able to show you the videos?
You can. They'll have to go. I can display them. I can share my screen, but you'll have to send them to elections@washtenaw.org. Send me the links, and then when the Election Commission is prepared to see those videos, if they decide to, then I can display them myself.
Okay. Well, give me a couple of minutes.
Elections@washtenaw.org.
Okay. Very good.
Good afternoon. Ed, are we expecting Catherine McCleary to attend today?
Okay, I'm going to turn this.
I am expecting that, yes. I don't see her as an attendee just yet, but so she did just recently get a reminder of the meeting. Okay. I'll give her one more minute and then try to reach out directly.
I did hear from her that she said she's coming, but that was yesterday.
So we'll wait.
And then just one last time, because we do have a few more folks that have just joined, you'll receive an invitation to be promoted to a panelist, which would allow you to be able to turn on your video at your discretion. You can choose to accept that invitation or decline it. And again, apologies if I've already sent it to you. It's hard to keep track of who I've sent it to and who I haven't.
And for anyone just recently signing on, we're just giving a few more minutes for others to join us.
And Treasurer McCleary has just joined.
Your Honor, this is Catherine McCleary. I've just joined. I've had some technical difficulties and I'm still trying to find all the materials that we've been sent. They're in 3 or 4 different places, it seems. So if you could...
Hey, Catherine, if I may, all of the materials are attached to the meeting invitation, your Outlook calendar.
Even the ones that were sent earlier this morning?
Yes. There are links to the written communications that, and everything is consolidated into that meeting invite or event.
Okay. So the stuff we got this morning, I see one from Hathaway. I see a 2-pager with Alex Jerome's name on it. And then I see a 2-pager, 3-pager that has no name attached to it whatsoever. It says, I understand that David Reed filed a petition to recall me, but there's no name anywhere. So it must be Vogel's, since we've got Jerome's and Hathaway's. So, okay. I've been on the road all morning, so I have not, the judge will be glad to know, I have not texted nor read my emails.
Okay. Well, do you need a few more minutes to gather the materials in front of you, or do you?
You know, I do have the materials gathered in front of me on the screen. And I think that it would be helpful, Your Honor, if you called the meeting to order as timely as possible. And then after we listen to everyone, if I needed to read some more, I could.
Okay, so with that, I will call the meeting to order. Good afternoon. I'm Darlene O'Brien. I have the privilege of chairing the Washtenaw County Election Commission, being the senior probate judge in Washtenaw County. Our other members are County Clerk Lawrence Kestenbaum and County Treasurer Catherine McCleary. Would you like to add anything to the introductions, Mr. Kestenbaum?
Only that I am calling in from Scioto Township. So,
okay.
And I am calling in remotely from the city of Ann Arbor, County of Washtenaw.
And I am remoting in from Ann Arbor Township. So we do have our agenda, and I don't know if everyone has a copy of that. I'm going to explain just briefly that the crux of this meeting is the 3 recall petitions, and those are items 4, 5, and 6 on the agenda. However, whenever we have an election commission meeting, we have general public participation, which is item 2 on our agenda. So at this time, I'm going to call for the public participation that doesn't pertain to the recall petitions, because once we bring those matters into question, any public will have the chance to participate on those items. So is there any public participation that doesn't relate to items 4, 5, and 6? And I don't know, Mr. Gomez-Busky, if you can see any hands raised or any chat pertaining to that.
There are no hands raised currently.
Okay, thank you. So then I'll move on to item 3, which is approval of our prior minutes from our September 2nd, 2021 meeting.
I move approval.
Your Honor, I would move approval or second approval with a friendly amendment. There was some discussion in a paragraph prior to approval of the ballots that our authority only extended to non-city ballots. And I believe the motion was to approve the Pittsfield Township special election ballots and specifically to exclude any city ballots that were before us. And I think it would provide more clarity if that were added, because there was a long discussion about that that doesn't appear in the minutes either.
Right. The clarification also should be that that only applies to standalone city elections where there's nothing else on the ballot. Because if a city election was held in conjunction with, say, a county election, then that would be within our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Thank you. And if Ed could clean up the language, maybe we could approve these minutes at our next meeting.
I move to defer the approval of these minutes to the next meeting.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. So we'll defer approval of the minutes of the September 2nd meeting to our next meeting. And that takes us now to items 4, 5, and 6. And the Election Commission review hearing today is to review the language of the 3 petitions submitted to the Washtenaw County Clerk's Office calling for the proposed recall of Will Hathaway, Scioto Township Supervisor, Alec Jerome, Scioto Township Trustee, and Jane Vogel, Scioto Township Trustee. So we're here today to determine whether each reason for recall stated in the petitions are factual and of sufficient clarity to enable both the officers subject to recall and the electors to identify a course of conduct that's the basis for the recall. Now, our Michigan Constitution grants the power of recall to the electorate, and the ultimate issue in recall petitions is to be left to the voters. However, this commission in the past has interpreted the factual aspect of this review in a narrow manner so as to be both constitutional and practical for this commission, because this commission does not have the power to subpoena witnesses. We don't administer oaths. We can't take testimony or proofs. And ultimately, we are not making findings of fact. So in order to construe that language narrowly, the factual requirement of MCL 168.952 requires that a recall petition, in our view, be stated in language that makes an assertion of fact rather than something like an opinion, or be grounded in reality to the extent that it has potential for being true. We're not the arbiters of the truth. We're just making a determination of whether the language is sufficient enough to be placed on the ballot. If any one reason is not sufficient, the entire petition is rejected and the board makes an up or down vote. We don't make amendments to any submitted petition. A petition rejected for insufficient clarity or factualness can be resubmitted. And do either of the commission members want to add to that? Treasurer McCleary?
The only thing I would add is in the comments, it indicates that one of the participants, and this is difficult because no one can see the participants, know who is at the public meeting. Typically, if we were all present, you could see people, talk to people. That's not very, Zoom is not conducive to that. But they are recording the meeting. That is legitimate, as I understand it, under the Open Meetings Act. People can record the meetings, but I'm just saying that on the record. Someone whom I don't recognize the name, but then how would I know everyone in the county is recording the meeting and has a right to do that? Thank you.
And any other introductory comment? If not, then we'll move to the item number 4, the recall petition review language submitted by David Reed against Scioto Township Supervisor Will Hathaway. So is there anyone who would like to speak to that petition?
Judge, there are currently 2 hands raised, Will Hathaway and Erwin Martin.
Okay. So why don't we begin with trustee supervisor, Hathaway.
I can't.
Thank you. I'm speaking to challenge the recall petition language filed against me as supervisor of Scioto Township on October 4th, 2021. The petition lists 5 reasons for my recall. It is my understanding that if any of the allegations in the petition is determined to be either vague or non-factual, then the proposed petition is deemed invalid. I assert that all 5 of the allegations are unduly vague and not factual, and I support this as follows. Allegation 1, consistently ignore the Open Meetings Act by curtailing residents' right to participate remotely in Scioto Township public meetings. This is non-factual and unduly vague. The Scioto Board of Trustees meetings afford our citizens, both in person and via remote participation on Zoom, the opportunity to participate as follows. 1, 2 standing public comment opportunities, 1 near the beginning of the meeting and 1 at the end of the meeting, allowing for public comment on any topic for up to 3 minutes. 2, public comment is also invited prior to any vote on every action item, limited to the topic of the action item, lasting for up to 3 minutes. 3, additionally, public comment is included in all instances of matters that require a public hearing or for any other reason for which we are required to do so by law. Given these opportunities, each member of the public, at a minimum, can speak twice in any meeting on any topic, and additionally may also speak on any action items or as required by law. These robust opportunities for public comment, both in person and via remote, have evolved over time as we set the rules for each meeting, but all conform to the requirements under Michigan's Open Meetings Act, including the newly adopted provisions from July 2021 regarding remote participation. This allegation is non-factual. The allegation against me claims I, quote, consistently, unquote, ignore the Open Meetings Act by, quote, curtailing, unquote, remote participation. Yet this allegation fails to mention any example or situation in which a member of the public was curtailed and unable to participate, or how I, as supervisor, did so. I have no involvement in the Zoom administration of our Board of Trustee meetings. I do not call on the electronic hands that are raised. I do not handle the timer, the mute, the chat, or any other function of the electronic interface. With my support, the Board of Trustees voted in early 2021 to authorize spending $30,000 on technology upgrades to Scioto Township's meeting hall, specifically to allow for better remote participation in township meetings. I supported the installation of this technology and worked with our IT director to implement the board's action. Accordingly, this allegation is non-factual and unduly vague. Allegation number 2, met with proponents of a neighborhood special assessment district without opponents present, which resulted in pitting neighbor against neighbor. This is non-factual and unduly vague. This allegation gives no reason or any specifics for how my meeting resulted in pitting neighbor against neighbor. I believe it is incumbent on an election official to meet with the citizens who elected them. I do so with citizens of Scioto Township who seek me out. I do not believe that it would be appropriate to limit that contact to only those situations where all sides of any disagreement or discussion are present. In fact, I believe it would be inappropriate to force anyone who simply wants to meet with their township officer to also require that they meet with any other interested party. I am not responsible for any conflicts that may arise among township residents. In this case, The conflict between these neighbors pre-existed my involvement and so could not have, quote, resulted, unquote, from my involvement. The discussions of the special assessment district in question began years prior to my even taking office as supervisor of Scioto Township. An additional factual error is that I met with proponents and opponents. I attended the one meeting of the entire neighborhood, which included both those in favor and those opposed. Neither I nor the board ever acted on this SAD because it was withdrawn before the proponents ever circulated their petition. The conflict was resolved by the SAD proponents' decision not to go forward with their petition. This allegation is unduly vague and non-factual. Allegation 3, censured public comment at township meetings. This is non-factual and unduly vague. If, quote, censure, unquote, refers to the official reprimand by a formal body of one of its own members, I am unaware of any such action by Scioto Township Board of Trustees. It is inappropriate to have to speculate about what this means with respect to public comment. Accordingly, this allegation is unduly vague. Allegation 4, denied select board members their right to participate in board discussions/debates during public meetings. This is non-factual and unduly vague. As supervisor, I serve as the moderator of board meetings. During meetings, it is incumbent on me to exercise control over parliamentary procedure, weighing a number of considerations as diverse as the privacy of job applicants and private citizens, and the legal advice of our township attorney. It is inappropriate for me to have to speculate what this allegation means with respect to, quote, select board members, unquote. Accordingly, this allegation is unduly vague. Allegation 5, bypassed the Township Compensation Commission and doubled his yearly salary to $72,000 for the part-time position to which he was elected. This matter is currently under litigation. This is non-factual. When I filed nominating papers to run for office in April 2020, the incumbent supervisor was being paid $72,000 and working in a full-time capacity. See the attached board minutes, page 7. The position of supervisor was full-time and compensated at an annual salary of $75,000 when I was elected November 3, 2020. After the November 3, 2020 election, but prior to my taking office, the prior Board of Trustees voted to lower the supervisor's salary to $36,000. See the attached minutes and the agenda item. That vote, which reduced the supervisor's salary, took place after the 2020 election. So it is not correct to say that I was elected to a part-time position. After I was in office for a few months, it was clear that I was working far more than 40 hours per week. In discussions related to the fiscal year end 2022 budget, I raised with the board, like my predecessor, I should be compensated for the full-time work I was doing, and the supervisor's salary should be adjusted back to $72,000. To be clear, the FYE 2022 budget was approved unanimously by the entire board in March 2021. The minutes are attached. The board voted in March 2021 to appropriate funds for a $72,000 annual salary for the supervisor when it approved the budget. The minutes from that meeting are attached as well. So it is non-factual to say that I bypassed the Township Compensation Committee, which was not created until June 22, 2021, and will make salary recommendations for the next fiscal year budget. But instead, clearly, the entire Board of Trustees passed the salary increase for the present year budget. Therefore, this allegation is non-factual. As the foregoing demonstrates, the 5 reasons provided by the recall petition author are each unduly vague and not factual, and I ask that you reject this petition language as insufficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hathaway. And Mr. Golombuski, who was the other individual who wanted to comment?
There are 2. Currently with his hand raised is Erwin Martin.
Okay, we'll look to...
Next is David Reed.
Okay, we'll look to Mr. Martin next. You are muted. There we go.
Okay, how about now? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, Erwin Martin, 3851 West Liberty, Scioto Township. I'm a former member of the Board of Trustees. I did not run for re-election, Board of Trustees of Scioto Township. I did not run for re-election last year. I know Ms. Vogel, Mr. Hathaway, Mr. Jerome very well. I've served with Mr. Jerome and Ms. Vogel on committees for years. I find this whole recall initiative remarkably unbelievable. All 3 of these members of the board are highly reputable. They're very impassioned with serving the township. I've known them all to do so very well. We are frankly thrilled and lucky to have people of such talent serving in our township, especially at the board where it's basically a volunteer position. The salary, if you wish to call it that, is of no consequence. Again, it's a bit of a shock to see this. I do have one specific comment based on what Mr. Hathaway just said about the salary. As a member of the previous Board of Trustees, the previous supervisor's salary was increased specifically because we lost our township manager due to illness and then retirement. The supervisor at that time was then working way more hours than he had signed on for when he was initially elected. So we felt it was only fair to duly compensate him for that, and hence the salary or an additional stipend was granted. As Mr. Hathaway said, we took that additional stipend away before he took office, specifically because we found out, or we knew that one cannot lower the salary of someone in office. You can only lower the salary of a future person. We did not wish to make any decision for a future Board of Trustees about how that supervisor position should be compensated. So therefore, it was lowered back to where it had been at the previous election, with the understanding that the future board would then adjust that accordingly to what they thought would be appropriate. Frankly, we were hoping there would be a township manager or an administrator much sooner than this, and that would become moot, and that Mr. Hathaway could indeed be in a part-time position. Clearly that has not happened. He's in a full-time position as his predecessor had been. So the whole idea of the salary is clearly a red herring. I'm not quite sure what drives all this. I do know that the person who brought this forward was also a member of that previous Board of Trustees. He ran for election, did not win. Perhaps he's simply, upset by his loss last year and taking some vengeance. I don't know. I know that another person on the board has also rallied troops against these 3 people. She is well known not to accept any position which is not her own. There's no negotiating with her, and these 3 folks are very they're very bright people and will not simply kowtow to someone who is trying to take a dominant position. So I support all 3. I've gone on longer than I wish to, but I did want to make a specific comment about what Mr. Hathaway had said and support his position 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next, we'll turn to Mr. Reed.
Yes, my name is David Reed, calling in from 713 Merlin Way in Scioto Township. I have to say, Pat and I did not start this process on a whim. Speaking for myself, I ran with these folks, 4 of them on the current board, and I thought I knew them. I had worked with each of them in some parts of the 11 years that I was a trustee. However, over the last 11 months, I have watched them devolve into a divisive group that is splitting the township apart. I have been asked several times if I am Team Jessica or Team Will. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the mentality in SCIO is. I consider myself Team SCIO. So in my opinion, recall is the lesser of 2 evils. Erwin, this is not about vengeance. This is about trying to save Scioto Township. I'm perfectly content being retired. I took this recall initiative as a total last resort. Believe me, I did not want to do this, but the actions of Supervisor Hathaway and trustees Vogel and Jerome left me no choice. Pat, do you want to say anything?
Yes, as co-sponsor for these petitions, I want you to know that the actions of this board at Scioto Township, some of the members, those actions have clearly not been in the best interest of the township. And I also want to know that this panel that we're appealing to is the absolute last avenue we have to hold these members accountable. We need to get SCIO back on track. Right now it's in crisis. And this has nothing to do with vengeance. This has to do with support of the township. I've been a SCIO resident for over 50 years, almost 50 years. And my involvement with different boards, this is the worst, and we need to get back on track. And these people must be held accountable so we can move forward. Thank you.
Is now the time to show the videos, or will we do that later?
First of all, Ms. Stein, your name for the record is Pat Stein. Is that correct?
It's Patricia Stein. Yes. You need my address?
Do we need her address?
If she's willing to provide it, but I don't believe the other attendees the other speakers have provided it.
Okay. I don't believe that it would be appropriate for this commission to start watching videos and taking evidence. We will take comment, but somebody might want to play the entirety of every board meeting. As I said at the outset, we are not here to be arbiters of the facts. We are here to determine whether the language on each of these petitions is sufficient and meets the standard. So is there any other comment on this petition?
Your Honor, are you directing that to Mr. Reed and Ms. Stein, or is that more general?
Anyone. I saw Mr. Summers raise his hand on the screen. Mr. Summers, did you wish to speak to this? If you do, yes, unmute your device and state your name.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I haven't actually looked at the actual language of the petition, which is the core of what you are doing here today. But I want to support in general the comment from people who attend Scioto Township board meetings that the board, since the election of the current members, has been, from my point of view, extremely reluctant to hear the voices of citizens. They have manipulated the timing of public comments so that this subject can be done at this point, but another subject can only be done at another point, making it extremely difficult. I attended SCIO trustee meetings for years under the previous trustees, I did not agree with them all of the time, but they respected the voices that were coming from the people. This board does not do that, and that's as far as I can add at this point. And I very much appreciate, Your Honor, you and the other members being here to hear and to deal with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. And others?
Yes, there are several. I believe Kathleen Brandt is next.
Okay. Ms. Brandt?
Hello, Kathleen Brandt, Scioto Township. I am the plaintiff in this suit served against Mr. Hathaway. I'm not at liberty to speak about that suit, but I am challenged the veracity of his claim that the Compensation Commission rules and language subject to that is inaccurate. I just would like to point the commission to MCL 41.95, section 4. This is a very narrow issue that will be decided by the courts, but it is, in my view, not accurate to say that that's an inaccurate claim in the language. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brandt. And I see that the hand is raised on Mr. Reed and Ms. Stein's block.
Yes, I just wanted to, I know I can't show the videos, but I want to at least explain what the videos would show you, because it's difficult to put into words the tones of voice and the rudeness and the way in which, in one particular video, the supervisor speaks to the clerk. When the clerk is trying to make a comment, he speaks very abrasively to her and commands her to do something. And then later on in the meeting, at the exact same meeting, later on towards the end, he allows Trustee Jerome to make comment. And it just tells the hypocrisy in this board and the animus in which the supervisor holds the clerk. It is just very disappointing to see the level of anger that comes out at these meetings. And believe me, I have been watching the meetings live and in video, and it is almost stomach turning to watch these people, the way they treat each other, or at least the way one group treats the other. I just don't, you can't put it into words. You actually have to look at the video to see the evidence. And I'm sorry, I'm not a Steinbeck, I can't write that. And there's not enough lines on the petition, but the video, like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you really need to see the video.
The videos are not full meetings. They're just clips from the videos, and actions speak louder than words. Just to give you an idea, most of the board meetings, if Supervisor Hathaway wants to make something in his favor, he does not let all the members of the board speak. He's very select in letting only 2 of the board members speak every time, and literally cuts off the speaking either of the clerk or Trustee Knoll. That's all I gotta tell you.
Yeah, the videos are really, some of them are a minute and a half, one of them's a minute and a half, a couple of them are 2, possibly 3 minutes long, because what we've done, we've taken hours and hours. Actually, one of the videos is a compilation of 4 of the meetings that we put together just to show the continuing violation of OMA.
And that video is less than 2 minutes long.
So,
and I'm going to stick by my ruling that we're not going to be admitting videos, because then other people are going to say, well, these are just snippets. You have to watch it in the entirety. So I am not going to be admitting videos at this meeting, but I will call on Stephen Feinberg, who had his hand raised for some time.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say there's one individual who seems to support these 3 people who are being recalled, and that's Ivan Martin. He was Orrin Martin. He was very instrumental in creating dissension among Scioto Township when he was a a trustee with the garbage disposal group, GFL. And that's created an initial dissension amongst the GFL. He himself did not listen to public comments and put us into a contract that was not in the best interest of the township. The mere fact that he's supporting these three individuals seems to compromise the quality of what he was trying to state. And I have concerns about that and wanted to vocalize it.
Thank you, Mr. Feinberg. And I see that Jonathan Green has had his hand raised as well. Greenberg?
Yes, it's Jonathan Greenberg, Park Road. Your Honor, I think that the comments by Erwin Martin were instrumental in demonstrating the gaslighting and complexity and difficulty in holding Will and others accountable. They know how to play the game. They have friends who have been in these roles for years here in Scioto Township. There's a common knowledge out here that there's this club of folks who've run Scioto for forever, and they have no patience and complete contempt for residents and anyone who doesn't agree with them. Without getting into pointing out video evidence, I would say that these are not vague. These are not non-factual. They are actually factual. They speak to a series of behaviors that unfortunately I've been watching. I've been here for 32 years and have never really felt necessity to get involved in my local government until they started doing things like forcing GFL down our throats and creating all sorts of problems because, quite frankly, Your Honor, there's some questionable finances going on in the background. And I don't know, nobody really knows. But here's the thing, there is continual backroom conversations and arrangements with other former board members to ensure that this looks vague and that this looks non-factual, such as Erwin's comments earlier. This is gaslighting in its purest form. It speaks to the contempt that they have for both us and the other board members who don't agree with them. And I would just urge you to look very closely at those videos when you have a chance to see the behavior, because the behavior and the contempt is clear and can't be really, I think, it's so complex and so subtle at times. You really have to see it in total to understand the ongoing animosity towards the clerk, another trustee, and the general public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. And I see that Mr. Martin has again raised his hand.
I just feel I have to comment on those two comments. There is a very small minority in the township that holds these sort of views. That trying to do anything, there's always this tiny group that feels that their rights are being taken away. It's just breathtaking, the craziness, frankly, for lack of a better word, that we had to put up with. This is frankly why I did not run for re-election, because life's too short to put up with these sort of accusations. I don't need this job, for lack of a better word. I again, fully support the folks who are doing this, but the sort of accusations that this board and the previous board have had to put up with, it's just nuts. To imply that there's backroom talk between GFL and that we're getting some sort of kickback, this is crazy talk. This is Trumpism. I mean, this is nuts. And I can't believe that we're still hearing this and that good people are being subjected to this. So you can keep talking about me all you wish. That's all I'm going to say. And thank you, Your Honor, for putting up with my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We have a new hand raised with Pam Boyd. Ms. Boyd, can you unmute your device?
Yes, Pam Boyd, a Scioto resident and the owner-writer of Scioto Community Newsletter. I started a newsletter this spring after going to township meetings for some time and was disgusted by what I was seeing. And so I now have a weekly newsletter that began as a neighborhood newsletter, and it is now slowly permeating throughout the entire township. And I have people every week asking to be in the circulation, to get this newsletter. And what I do is I go to every single meeting in the township, including Washtenaw County Road Commission, and I write a report. And what I can tell you is the contentiousness has just doubled down. And more residents want to know it is not a small group of residents. We are growing every week, and we are disgusted at what we are seeing. And I will point out to you in a FOIA that I have dated November 24th that in regards to the supervisor doing a supervisor's job, he talks about how the previous supervisor recommended that he take the new individuals who wanted to sign up for GFL and to do that job himself. I have a ton of documents, FOIA documents, showing that our supervisor would sign up new clients all the way through June when this is a clerical position. And I would argue that our clerical staff has more important things to do than signing up residents for GFL. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with GFL, but there are more cha-ching. We have another resident for you, GFL. And so it really does irk me that he thinks that he needed a bigger salary when he was doing things that he should not have been doing as my supervisor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. And I see that Kathleen Brandt's hand has been raised for some time. I know that you spoke earlier, Ms. Brandt. Did you wish to speak again? Your hand is not raised now, so I assume you are done speaking. So
Your Honor, there is one other individual that's had their hand raised that hasn't yet spoken. I'm probably going to massacre the name, but from one person with a difficult last name to another, I apologize. Frode Massidevag.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Frode Massidevag, 5127 Dexter Ann Arbor Road. Been at Scioto Township since 1977. I am a bit appalled at what's going on with some of the township board, particularly the leadership and what is getting pushed. And I want to not go and repeat all the stuff that Jeff Greenberg, Harvey Summers, David Reed, Pat Stein, and Pam Boyd have been talking about, except that I support their comments. And I have been listening into not all, but many meetings, and both the current one and the former ones. And I want to say that I totally support the recall effort that David Reed has kindly put in place. And I hope it'll happen because we need to get a proper board for Scioto Township. We can't afford to have all this stuff going on, and also the sniping at each people who don't necessarily agree with them. And our clerk is taking a lot of beating, and this has got to stop. And I support the recall effort statements that David Reed has made, and I hope they get approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have a new hand raised with Rob Pattinson. Sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Rob Pattinson, Scioto Township resident for off and on for 45 years. I earned my Eagle badge under Mr. Masivag in Troop 123 a long time ago. Hello, Mr. Masivag, it's been a long time. Unfortunately, you're not able to listen to these videos, so I would like to give you a couple of examples of recent activity. At this week's Board of Trustees meeting, it was revealed that the supervisor has been blocking the clerk from bringing forward a motion, and this is the only way she's able to raise the money, to pay an outside financial consultant in order to produce reports and support the fire department, the utilities department, and the internal finance department. And this has been going on for several weeks. And at the end of this discussion, we found from the fire chief, Chief Hood, that he was grateful that they had finally passed this motion to pay this consultant $9,000 and that it would get him back on track. And this blocking of this money has put him 7 weeks behind schedule in the fire station project. So the conflict between the clerk and the supervisor is having a significant impact on the staff. It's a hostile work environment. It's putting projects like the chief's project 7 weeks behind. We understand that the utilities department also is behind because of the impediment of getting their computer system up and running that this blocking has caused.
Thank you, Mr. Pattinson.
May I add one more thing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. It's hard when we can't see the face.
I apologize. I don't have the bandwidth to be able to speak and be on camera at the same time. My last point is this week, the Compensation Commission finally was brought forward with nominations, and 4 out of 5 of the nominations for the Compensation Commission were extremely inappropriate. And the supervisor at the time said he did not understand the opposition to these nominations. And that, in my opinion, is the foundation for why he is incapable of doing his job. He does not understand the conflict of interest, the potential corruption, the appearance of corruption that his actions can cause. And therefore, he does not have the tools needed to do this job. Thank you, I'm done.
Thank you. And so I see that the David Reed and Pat Stein screen has the hand up again. You are muted, though. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I see Jonathan Greenberg had his hand raised before me, but if you want me to go, I'll go next.
Oh, okay. I didn't see who had theirs first, but since you're talking, why don't we go with you and then we'll go back to Mr. Greenberg.
Okay. I just wonder if I might take a moment to go through the points on the petition, on the recall petition for Supervisor Hathaway. And in support of point number 1, again, we cannot fit all of the evidence on these 3 lines, but in the information that I submitted recently to Ed, there are videos and emails that, well, specifically documents that show that the supervisor submitted a motion that would exclude or prevent residents from who were participating in board meetings remotely to make comments. Now, fortunately, that motion didn't pass, and the clerk modified that motion to add residents in, which did pass. But I think that shows the intent of his wanting to exclude residents from making comments. Another example would be at the meeting, I forget the exact date, but it was a meeting that went till almost midnight. At 10:30, there were 2 items left on the agenda. One was closed session and one was public comment. The public comment happened to be the last one. Rather than letting the public comment of folks speak at public comment, the supervisor took the board into closed session, and they sat in closed session for almost an hour and a half. It was, I think, 10 to 12 when they came out of closed session. And when they went into closed session, there were 20, how many, Pat?
26 people waiting to speak. They waited 3.5 hours for this public comment section to speak. After they went into closed session, we looked at a black screen, well, I should say a frozen screen, for 90 minutes. When they came back on from the closed session, there were only 16 people left, virtually public, wanting to speak. And of that, 11 people spoke. It was actually that meeting that I knew that we need to do something. His Supervisor Hathaway's multiple attempts to eliminate public comment, that to me, that was the last straw. That's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Also in that file I sent is a document that has at least tries to reflect the rules of public comment that the supervisor reads at each meeting. And it's odd to me because the board moves and approves the agenda, and the agenda has rules for public comment in it. But then the supervisor, when it comes to public comment, reads his own rules, and I think it takes 2.5 minutes to read the rules, and it just goes on, and it's extremely restrictive, and it really tries to limit public comment. Number 2, met with proponents of the neighborhood. This was a long-standing SAD, and the neighbors were incensed that the anti-paving folks had not been contacted by the pro-paving folks or had been involved in meeting. In fact, one of the anti-paving folks sent an email to the supervisor explaining her position, and he took her email and forwarded it to the proponents, and then that person was subjected to lots of insults and threats because of her position. So, his improper handling of that situation caused significant issues for at least one, possibly several of the neighbors. It really was almost a civil war in that neighborhood. Number 3, censured public comment at township meetings. At one point in time, one of the trustees, actually Trustee Jerome, which is one of the issues we have, went into trying to adjust the meeting minutes from the prior meeting to take out language that the trustee thought was inappropriate and
or subjective.
But in my opinion, I always believe that the meeting minutes should reflect the meeting, not what the board wants the meeting to be. But the supervisor allowed that. Number 4, denied select board members their right to participate. I think one of those videos you will see that being in black and white. Well, actually, it's in color. In black and white, it's there where he shuts down one of the board members, the clerk, actually. And number 5, I think, is subject of a lawsuit. I think that speaks for itself. I don't think we need to go in there anymore. But the compensation commission was passed. The ordinance was passed with a 30-day limit to seat the commission, and the 30 days went by and the commission was not seated. And then a few days after the 30-day limit, the supervisor brought the motion to the board to raise his salary. So I think these issues just show the lack of experience, the lack of basically playing by the rules. And apparently, in my opinion, the rules don't apply to Will.
It's interesting. I want to point out that the meeting where the salary was increased or doubled, the meeting prior to that, where they discussed the agenda for the special meeting, the meeting was actually supposed to be a discussion of rules of order, where the board was going to approve and put in place rules of order. Well, Supervisor Hathaway actually hijacked the agenda for the August 17th meeting, which was supposed to be for the rules of order, and instead placed 3 things on the agenda, and revising his job description, revising a administrator job description that was already approved by the board, but he made some changes to it, and adding his proposal or motion to double his salary. So the intent was there to bypass the compensation commission and skirt the lawsuit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Greenberg, did you wish to speak again?
Yeah. If I knew David and Pat were going to talk for so long, I wouldn't have been so gracious. No, I'm just kidding. So a couple of things. First of all, in support of number 2, met with proponents of the Neighborhood Special Assessment District. I was at a kind of the Civil War final meeting. I saw what happened. You may say it's vague in terms of Will's participation in the event, but having seen the FOIA emails that I've seen over the last month, it's pretty clear that there was a lot of interesting conversations between him, his non-appointed lackey, and the neighborhood, the wealthy neighborhood who wanted the roads paved. They did. They ignored all of the residents who have been there for a bunch of years. He focused on ensuring they didn't have a voice by trying to create enough momentum for the other side. But here's the thing, much like Erwin's second comment, there's a lot of gaslighting going on. And from their official position, everything can be made to look like, oh, this is a simple little misunderstanding. But if you heard how many times Will said, I didn't understand that, or I was just joking, or, he referred to one of the trustees as honey and then issued a non-apology apology. I mean, the level of misogyny that's been expressed that you can see in these videos from Will is pretty disgusting. But we're here to talk about Will at the moment. So I was at that meeting. I watched that neighborhood yell at each other, 4, 5, 6, 7 people holding up cameras, videotaping each other. It was a neighborhood civil war. And the work that he did initially, meeting with the neighbors, emailing and sharing the proponents' emails so they can be prepared, is kind of typical and reflective of Erwin Martin's comments. They have been trying to paint us as a minority since day one. In fact, when he voted for the GFL debacle, they continually said the 100 people, the 60 people, the 80 people that were showing up at the Township Hall and then later, in recent meetings on Zoom, they were calling us, they were saying that we're this just radical, crazy minority who, they're crazy locals. They don't know what they're talking about. We've been here. We know how to run a township. They continued to refer to their friends or whatever as the silent majority. And when 60 people spoke out against the GFL proposal in a meeting, and then they voted for it, and like 2 people spoke out, and they voted for it immediately on their way out the door. That kind of contempt, that kind of gaslighting is disgusting. And I'm glad that Pam Boyd has kind of collected all the various area efforts, neighborhood efforts into one bigger, clearer communication group, because it's really, it's gaslighting, it's disgusting, it's kind of what we see them doing to Jessica and Kathy in the meetings. We'll get to Jane and Jerome in a minute, but with their complicity and hand-wringing, but complete complicity and cooperation, he's able to make things look, oh, well, this wasn't really intended this way. It just kind of appears that way. Watch the video, look at the notes, because it's overwhelmingly not a minority of people. It's a large majority of this township. And folks like Erwin should be ashamed of themselves trying to manipulate people's views, gaslighting like he does to impact his power here in the township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. And I see Kathleen Brandt has a hand raised.
Yes, Kathleen Brandt, Scioto Township. I know this meeting is pretty strictly about the language in the petition recall petition. And I want to address one of these specifics regarding Vogel. That's a huge mistake. I'm sorry. Number one, did not take time to educate herself on Open Meetings Act or general knowledge of township processes and procedures.
You know, I'm going to ask you to hold that comment until we get to that petition. We're going to take these one at a time, and that is item number 6 on our agenda.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's fine. I see another hand, Caroline Altamar. Did you wish to speak to this petition regarding Supervisor Hathaway?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much. Caroline Altamar, Scioto Township resident. I was part of the Neighborhood Railroad SAD event, for lack of a better word. I was also part of the group that objected to the paving of the roads. The thing that got those that objected to the paving incensed was that we found out that this was 1.5 years into process before, and it was discussing all of the ways to make it happen were back channeled prior. So in other words, the statute that dictates A, then B, then C, then D, and this is how you create a SAD, were completely not complied with. And when the new board came in my mind, at that point, Trustee Hathaway should have said, I can see that the proper procedure was not adhered to create the SAD. I'm going to go back to the people who want it. And I'm going to say, okay, start at A and go through the thing. And the township has to be completely out of it because the township is not supposed to be involved in any way, shape, or form until later on in the process, and should have just withdrawn from there. But the continued participation in meetings and with other people, which there's a lot of FOIA documents for all those emails, was just infuriating. And that contributed to this very fractious and very divisive issue in my neighborhood. So I just was very discouraged that Supervisor Hathaway did not do that. To Mr. Irwin, I just want to say that I object strenuously to your categorizing residents who are very avid as crazy, a crazy group. I think that adjective is completely inappropriate. And to address Pam Boyd as far as the group that is big and it is growing, Pam Boyd's newsletter, just want to say if she's still listening, in support of Pam Boyd, is a very objective newsletter. She does not do hyperbola. She does not do opinion. She just reports on facts. Here's what was said at the meetings. Here are the meetings that are happening. Here's what's going on in the Roads Commission and that kind of thing. And she, the fact that if she says that her readership is growing by leaps and bounds and people are wanting to get involved and see what's going on, she is a woman of integrity and should be taken at her word. If you want to see one of her newsletters, I think that you'd be very impressed. She does a fantastic job. So I am in support of the recall. I do watch the board meetings and I find them very painful to watch. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I see that Rob Pattinson has a hand raised.
I got to pee.
Just to address Mr. Martin's comments about this small group.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear who's speaking. Is that Rob Pattinson?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, if you can keep your voice up, that would be helpful.
Thank you, I apologize. And I'd like to address Mr. Martin's comment that there's a small group of very vocal people. I never would have imagined myself as someone who would get up in front of the public and speak. I have been driven to this by what I've seen in our local government, the incompetence, in some cases, in my opinion, in some cases, corruption. And if it wasn't for the level of crisis that this township is in, I never would be in this position speaking. And I'd like to suggest that this is a very complicated issue and it needs serious investigation further than you can get in this public comment period. And I'd also like to point out that we've become so desensitized to the dysfunction of this Board of Trustees that not many of us have talked about this supervisor losing control in public meetings to the point where he is yelling and raising his voice, yelling repeatedly at the clerk, please call the roll, 4, 5, 6 times, in increasing volume and trying to impose his will on another human being. And I hope that as you investigate this, you will find these often happening occurrences of the supervisor losing control of his temper, losing his self-control is yet another measure of how ill-equipped he is to perform his job. Will, sorry about this position you're in. I wish you had seen us as a resource that was trying to help you instead of as opposition. Up until this past board meeting, I had hope that you could bring this around. I no longer believe that you have the skill to recover this township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pattinson. And I see that Kathleen Brandt has a hand raised.
Yes, Kathleen Brandt, Scioto Township. Back to the accuracy of the language, which I think is the purpose here. For Mr. Hathaway, it suggests that he censured public comment at township meetings. I'm kind of a stickler for fact. Did an audit.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you now. Ms. Brandt? Perhaps her screen froze. It's hard to tell without the video.
Can you hear me at all?
Now I can hear you again.
Okay, thank you. I will try to project. So as I was saying, I'm a stickler for facts, and I provided this at a public comment during one of the meetings. I did an audit. The previous supervisor had never changed the language regarding public comment, and that is printed on the agenda. In my survey of Mr. Hathaway's work, I surveyed 19 agendas that he published, and 15 of the 19 had the language changed for when, how, what public comment could occur. So at a rate of 78% of all the audits all the agendas that I reviewed, he was at a rate of 78% of changing that language on the published agenda. To me, that is perfect example of censure of public comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who wish to speak to this petition? I see no further hands raised. Do you, Mr. Golombewski?
There's one additional, Kim Phillips. Nope.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I was
state your name for us.
I apologize. My name is Kim Phillips Canope. I live in Scioto Township, and I was one of my wife and I were the two people who initially reached out to Supervisor Hathaway about the railroad SAD. We were informed by people in our HOA that they wanted to pave railroad, which is a road that they don't actually live on and didn't legally have any right to even come up with an SAD to because they don't live on the road itself. They had to actually come up with a fake reason to have themselves included in an HOA to try to get a public road paved because they live on a private road. Supervisor Hathaway was actually informed by the Scioto Township representative who was working with the HOA that this is what was happening. We didn't know this until later when we FOIA'd documents to try to find out what was going on. We reached out to Supervisor Hathaway in good faith, telling him what was happening and that our neighbors who lived on the actual roads that were proposed to be paved didn't even know that this was being proposed, that this SAD had been proposed. They were purposely being excluded from the conversation by the HOAs at the behest of and sort of suggestion and guidance of Scioto Township representatives. We reached out to Supervisor Hathaway, told him what was going on, and asked for his help to make sure that the SAD process, the legal process that is outlined, or not legal, the process that is outlined by the township, that process actually be followed. The first step of which is actually bringing together the community and answering questions that the whole community has. That never happened. There were already far into the process, as others have said, but we found out sort of through FOIAs and that Supervisor Hathaway was working very closely with the people with the pro-paving organizers to try to support them through the process, to try to push this paving through. There was a meeting that we believe the Open Meetings Act was violated. Several people were asked to participate in a public meeting that was happening with the Washtenaw County Road Commission. All private citizens were initially told they could attend the meeting, and then like 5 minutes before the meeting, when they were asked, people were asking for the Zoom link, they were told by Supervisor Hathaway that it was now a private meeting, but a private citizen was allowed to participate in that meeting, and that was the private citizen who had been coaching the pro-paving organizers. We still have yet to find out what actually happened at that meeting, but it was either later that day or a couple of days later, the SAD proposal had actually expanded even beyond what the pro-paving organizers had even wanted. And Lou Kidder, that private citizen at the meeting in the community, said that at that meeting, the township had said that they were going to contribute $1 million to this SAD that there had not even been a public meeting yet where the community could voice their opinions. We did a tremendous amount of organizing within our own community to try to just inform our neighbors what was happening, and then to make sure that their voices had a platform where they could be heard on equal footing as the neighbors in the HOA. Through our efforts, we found out that 84% of the people who actually had voting rights on the SAD did not want it. And so in the end, many, many hours, I cannot even begin to tell you how much conflict has come out of this, to the point that we are still, as the people who were not in support of this SAD, we are still being harassed by our neighbors who were part of the organizing. This is still impacting our neighborhood, and Supervisor Hathaway's inability to both to step into a leadership role, which is his job as a supervisor, to help make sure that the process was followed according to Scioto Township rules, that his not doing that, and then in fact going behind the scenes and encouraging our pro-paving neighbors to keep pushing through this process, even though there wasn't support for it, was incredibly harmful. And it has continued to cause harm in our community. And it goes completely against what his role as a supervisor is supposed to be in that process. We heard that from other people within the township, informed us also that was inappropriate. And I will speak again to this. I'd like to speak again to this later, as Trustee Vogel was also involved in this, but I know you want to hold that for later.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else that you see, Mr. Golombewski?
No, there are none.
Okay, then I will close the public participation on this recall petition and open it up to our commission members.
I guess if I could speak a moment, I know that people are calling for an investigation and things like that, but that's not the role of this body. We're basically here looking at just that language that was submitted and its clarity and perhaps factuality. And the other part of it is that each of the numbered points in this, basically each of them has to stand on their own as being clear and factual. So it's like a chain. If it's only as strong as the weakest link. And I think that we're probably, I think there is an issue with the use of the word censured when that's not what was apparently intended.
Treasurer McCleary, you are muted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have to agree with Clerk Kestenbaum. I can hear a lot of pain and concern in residents' voices, but we need to vote on the language. And we're not arbiters of the fact or even the contentious character of leadership. We really have to look at documented behavior. Typically, when we have a petition that we're looking to determine clarity, we'll have one item and it'll be very specific. It wouldn't say something like censured public comment. It would say in 15 of 19 agendas between such and such dates, the supervisor changed the criteria for public comment. And we would have one item like that, sometimes two. So I cannot really find this petition to meet the criteria that we're required to adhere to by law. I hear a lot of pain, but I don't see something that fits what we are allowed to vote on, Your Honor.
And I would agree with the two of you as well. So I don't know if you have further comments or if someone would like to propose a motion.
I will move that we find the recall petition involving Supervisor Will Hathaway not to be of sufficient clarity or factuality, and just that to do all the various things that is required of a petition for recall.
I would support.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the vote was unanimous. Thank you. And this takes us to item number 5 on our agenda, the recall petition review hearing for language submitted by David Reed against Scioto Township trustee Alec Jerome. And I'm not going to repeat my prior introductory comments, but of course they apply to these other two petitions as well. I will open this item up to comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Are there any hands that you, Mr. Reed and Ms. Stein, I see you have your hand raised. You're muted though.
Sorry. I was just waiting to see if Trustee Jerome was in attendance and so that he could make a statement, but.
He did submit a letter and I presume it's part of the packet. He said in his letter that he was not going to be able to attend this meeting because of his job, I believe, and asked that his letter be considered. So have you had a chance to see that, Mr. Reed?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
But I just want to reiterate, and again, I'm new to this process, obviously. You don't file recall petitions every day, but I was under the impression that we would be able to, in fact, in the letter, it says we would be able to provide information during this meeting, and the information we prepared substantiates the points on our petitions, but I understand that those cannot be looked at or reviewed at this point in time. And as I said, the issues that we're talking about are difficult to summarize in a sentence or two or a line or two. I guess we had a bad choice of the word censure, since that was the issue that throughout the previous petition. But I just want to say that I worked with Alec for many, many years on the Land Preservation Commission and the Planning Commission, and he always seemed to me to be a fair-minded, open-minded person. But once he's seated on the board, that all changed, and I see him trying to delete meeting comments from meeting minutes that he finds objectionable, which to me is basically a violation of the Constitution, the United States Constitution. He twice voted to deny residents who are attending remotely the ability to make comments. Once he voted for a motion that did not include language referencing remote participation, and 5 minutes later he voted against a petition that had the language for remote participation. So it seems like he definitely does not want remote residents to make comments at the board meeting. He voted for the salary. I mean, it's all a matter of record. He voted for the salary increase. And he's also, again, part of the record I submitted, he is attempting to limit fellow board members to comment once per agenda with one follow-up item. Now, honestly, a board meeting, Pat, do you want to say anything at the moment?
Well, you would expect the back and forth discussions, sometimes robust debate. But when you're limiting a board member to speaking once and possibly with a follow-up, that does not help the residents.
The board table should be a place for open debate. Some might say argument, but certainly a back and forth, an ability to change someone's mind or the chance to change someone's mind. And I know I've changed my, actually Erwin, I think on a couple of occasions has changed my mind at a board table. I don't know if I've changed his, but it happens. But when you can only speak once and with one possible follow-up, that doesn't happen. So I think he's definitely trying to change the complexion, if you will, of the board meeting. He used to be the chair of the Planning Commission, where in fact the commissioners truly did only speak once because they would give their opinions of the particular project or a particular planning document. They give the suggestions, the opinions to the petitioner. So there was no need for debate. But at the board table, you have to be able to debate, whether it takes 5 minutes or 2 hours. There has to be the ability to communicate. And in my mind, Trustee Jerome is trying to eliminate that option in the board. And again, this is all documented on those documents that I've sent you, or that I'm being sent.
Thank you. Any other participants that want to speak?
Lower your hand, David.
Are there any other hands that you see raised, Mr. Golombiewski?
None at this time.
So then I'll close the comment on item number 5 and turn it over to our commissioners. Yes, Treasurer McCleary.
I would also move to find this petition not to be of sufficient clarity. And if that motion is supported, I would speak to it.
I'll support the motion.
And again, Clerk Kestenbaum had pointed out that the weakest, when there's 5 or 6 things or 2 things or 4 things in a petition, the weakest link really prevails. The other thing I don't believe was said earlier, a petition has to be of sufficient clarity that should there be a recall election, the person who is attempted to be recalled can defend themselves to the voters. And that's why there needs to be clarity. Like, is attempting to limit board members' comments, there needs to be some specificity to that, when and at what was said or what board meeting it happened at or something like that. It just seems so vague. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm just trying to be helpful. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other discussion? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to find this recall petition of insufficient clarity and factuality, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it appears to be unanimous again. So that takes us to number 6 on our agenda, the recall petition review hearing for the language submitted by David Reed against Scioto Township trustee Jane Vogel. I'll open that to public participation. I see Ms. Vogel has her hand raised, so we'll begin with you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And please state your name for our record.
Jane Vogel, Scioto Township resident.
Thank you.
I am going to read from the letter I submitted. I will paraphrase to hit highlights. I do not believe the threshold has been met for factuality and sufficient clarity, and will describe the factual inaccuracies below. Please consider this letter my challenge to the petition language file. Claim 1. Did not take time to educate herself on the Open Meetings Act or general knowledge of township process and procedure before taking office, and ignores advice from her more experienced and knowledgeable peers. This is not a factual claim. The petitioner is speculating on the amount of time I took to educate myself, specifically on OMA and in general to prepare myself for the office I was elected to, and further speculates on whether or not advice was taken. I have in fact attended many sessions or viewed their recordings of the Scioto Governance Academy, which was a series of online presentations to prepare the new board for office. I have researched OMA to understand this important obligation. I have served on various Scioto Township boards and commissions since 2009 and have engaged with the board as a whole and separately with knowledgeable board members numerous times over that period. I am familiar with board practices. I have routinely reached out to past board members for advice and counsel on numerous board practices, as well as for background and historic perspective on specific issues. I will acknowledge that serving as an elected official on a board subject to OMA is a new experience for me. In 27 years of professional management experience in the private sector, it is my instinct to engage and collaborate broadly with the exclusion of all impacted stakeholders. Now being with the public body, I have had to reorient that instinct in accordance with OMA. Regarding the charge of ignoring advice from more experienced peers, I challenged this directly. Early in 2021 and throughout the year, I have been in contact with a number of past and current board members for advice and counsel on how best to navigate different situations. In one set of calls initiated by a former trustee, I received much appreciated coaching on demeanor in board meetings. All of this input has been very helpful as I have worked to calibrate my style of engagement at the board. The charge of did not take the time and ignores advice is not fact-based. It is speculative, vague, and contrary to the facts. It is my understanding that if any one of the 5 claims is determined to be either vague or non-factual, then the petition language is deemed invalid. Claim 1 is both vague and contrary to the facts. Claim 2, glaringly oblivious to the requirements of the OMA and continues to violate them. I believe I have addressed this issue in number 1 above. This claim in the petition does not assert any specific information with dates and subject matter to back up this assertion. The charge of glaringly oblivious to OMA is subjective, vague, and contrary to the facts and further contribution, to the facts and further contributes to the petition language being deemed invalid. Claim 3. As the Township Board representative to the Transportation Alternative Planning Committee, she instructed committee members attending remotely that it is not necessary to identify their current locations. During the spring and summer of 2021, TAP, and I believe other boards and commissions, were getting a series of emails from the Township Clerk regarding protocols for agendas and meetings, minutes and posting requirements, new email requirements, and then later information on the use of hybrid meeting formats and associated training. This all represented a significant level of change to previous TAP meetings. None of this was communicated or coordinated with me as the board representative to TAP. These are volunteer committees being held to the same level of rigor as the Board of Trustees, and I saw the stress this was causing numerous TAP committee members. It is in that context, at one of the first Zoom meetings, when I saw the secretary working hard to capture all the locations of those on Zoom, that I said something like, maybe we don't need all the locations. What I said was not an instruction or directive, but rather a comment to ease the stress of the moment. This was a new and unprecedented time for TAP and many other committees. And while all committee members were learning to operate on Zoom and under OMA, there is no such instruction in the TAP minutes. Claim number 4. Instructed TAP secretary to discard comments made via Zoom chat and residents' emails from TAP minutes. This was the first or second Zoom-based TAP meetings, and the process of sorting out how to run Zoom, bring participants in, manage in-person attendance and remote attendance, move through a highly structured agenda, and decide what to include in meeting minutes were all new to the committee. It was a steep learning curve for all committee members. The chat function was operational in these early Zoom meetings, and comments had been added in the chat. I believe this is the meeting where the microphone was left on after the meeting was over. There was a conversation about Zoom experience, one aspect of which was the chat function. I believe I expressed a view that it was not necessary to include chat content in the minutes. Other views were also expressed. What I said was not an instruction or a directive, but rather one of many views being aired as TAP was going through the ongoing process to decide how to handle TAP meetings on Zoom under OMA. There is no such instruction reflected in TAP minutes. Claim number 5, regularly insults fellow board members and is rude to Township residents. This is quite vague and subjective rather than fact-based. It lacks sufficient clarity to allow it to stand. I will offer, I did have a former board member contact me and offer some advice on body language during Zoom meetings. This person advised me to watch my facial expression, as some people felt I was projecting the wrong image at times. I have been attentive to that. I will further offer that in a 27-year career at Ford Motor Company, in various management level positions here and in Europe, and in a 12 plus years in various leadership roles as a community volunteer, I cannot recall a period that I was characterized as rude. This claim lacks sufficient clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vogel. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Yes, Ms. Flowers, please tell us your name.
Thank you. Suzanne Flowers, 2890 North Parker Road, Dexter, Michigan, Scioto Township resident. And I also sit as a volunteer on the Scioto Township TAP Committee. I have a prepared statement, Your Honor. I'd like to take this moment and provide my support for the work that Jane Vogel is providing to the citizens of Scioto Township. My experience with Ms. Vogel has been through my appointment on the Scioto Township Transportation Alternatives Planning Committee. In less than 1 year, I have seen Ms. Vogel work diligently to complete the tasks that have been outlined in partnership among all Scioto Township TAP members. The securing of non-township funds is one example where her dedication to match all township funds with those non-township funds dollars is a benefit to the citizens of Scioto Township. This can be recently shown with the securing of $1.5 million worth of state funds for the Zeeb Road pathway and the I-94 crossing in partnership with township consultants and Board of Trustee members. Without the vision and determination to complete this project for the benefit of all Scioto Township residents, this money would not have been secured with partnership from Representative Lizinski and placed in the FY 2022 state budget. Additionally, once you get to know Jane and know her well, you find her to be a person who is willing to listen and learn. While it may be challenging to step back and allow others to take the lead, I have seen this shift personally over the past 6 months within TAP. She does rely upon the others' opinions and advice when she may not have all of the answers. Additionally, Ms. Vogel has never instructed myself or other members to disregard the comments collected from the public during TAP meetings. When there was question about how to handle things, our committee immediately reached out to Scioto Township Clerk Flintoff to ask how the Board of Trustees and other committees were handling the use of the virtual engagement platform. Upon Clerk Flintoff's recommendation, we turned the chat feature off because it was clear that not all participants would be able to see the comments collected during a meeting if, let's say, someone phoned in. On the point of taking the time to educate herself on Open Meeting Act and general township governance, I have not witnessed this issue as it pertains to TAP. And it should be noted that since we are a recommending body, all final decisions from the Scioto Township TAP Committee do rest with the Board of Trustees. On the point to identify members and where they were from, it was decided again that as a recommending body that it was not necessary, and from my recollection, to ID where we were all calling from, since again, we make recommendations and all decisions are final with the Board of Trustees. On the issue of instructing TAP secretary to disregard comments made via Zoom, I believe that I have been in attendance of the last 10 meetings, and at no time do I recall there ever being this instruction given to the TAP secretary. On the contrary, when this was brought up, I downloaded these comments, provided them directly to the secretary for the potential inclusion following a discussion and what was considered public comment from Clerk Flintoff. While I've only known Jane for less than 1 year, I can state with a clear mind that I have seen Jane become more willing and capable during this time, given all of the committees and responsibilities that she is a part of. Sorry, I lost my place. This growth does not happen overnight, and no class, degree, or training can fully prepare you for the rigors of the job that Ms. Vogel has been voted on by the citizens of Scioto Township to lead. I thank you for your time and consideration. And Your Honor, I was provided one other comment from a fellow board member, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to read his comments as he provided it to me.
Yeah, that's fine with me if you think it's important and relevant.
He did ask, and I will say that this is from Mr. Norm Roller, a TAP and PARB member, who is also a resident of Scioto Township. I quote, "This letter is in support of Jane Vogel, Scioto Township trustee. I was not present at the interactions that those behind the recall have cited to support their drive. I have known Jane for a long time. However, and I can state categorically that the actions that they have attributed to her are completely at odds with her true character. I've never observed her show a bit of rudeness to another person. Rather, she is very patient in her dealings with others and always seems inclusive and empowering while others are involved. Moreover, Jane was a leader at a TAP meeting in getting the area of concern adjacent to Honey Creek removed from inclusion in a collection of, quote, remaining potential, end quote, trail routes in the township. Again, these actions are hardly consistent with the behavior of a person with their own agenda to push. It is my opinion, therefore, that it is highly unlikely that she has acted in the manner that those calling for her recall have stated." That is the end of the correspondence. And thank you for your time.
Thank you again. So I see that David Reed and Pat Stein had their hand up, I think, next. So we'll go to you. You'll need to unmute, though.
So we're getting a sense that our choice of language in some of these cases has not really been what you were looking for. But I understand that. But I do want to address some of the comments made by Trustee Vogel, only because you have not, we didn't have the opportunity to show our clips or to present our documentation ahead of time. We were given the impression that we would be allowed to show videos. But hearing you now and understand that it's not really the videos, but it's the language. But I do want you to know that almost all of the comments that Trustee Vogel stated in defending our petition language or the comments we made on our petition language, those all her comments can prove to be falsehoods if you were to look at all the videos we did submit to you by email at the start of this meeting. Thank you.
David Reed.
Yes.
I think if the commission would look back to the beginning of Trustee Vogel's comments, you'll notice she did not identify herself or where she was calling in from, which is an OMA requirement. She also mentioned that it was unprecedented to operate under OMA. OMA is a state law. State law says any committee, commission, board, I mean, it lists like 5 or 6 different words. Any group that works in a municipality has to work under OMA. And if you don't, then the decisions you make, the meetings you have can be challenged. I was on TAP from its inception. I was on the TAP committee since its inception. And I have witnessed, well, I won't go into that because it's not in the language. But I have to say the TAP charge explicitly says that TAP shall conform to OMA. And and on the video, and I know you can't look at the video, but I'm telling you that Trustee Vogel at the May meeting for TAP, when people started identifying themselves, so-and-so from Scioto Township, so-and-so from Scioto Township, when it was her turn, once she got her speaker unmuted, she said, "I thought we agreed we didn't have to do this." The secretary responded, "Well, I don't know." And the Trustee Vogel said, "Well, I'm your board representative and I say we don't have to do it." And the meeting continued. So I can't tell you, I mean, that the law says you have to state where you're coming from, regardless of whether it's a commission or committee. And she routinely does it. Even this last September, the meeting just in last September, when her name was called at the board meeting, she said here, and the clerk said, Scioto Township. And I don't even think she responded to that. So she clearly does not want to follow OMA regulations. And that's that. And again, the video would show the rudeness to to residents at a meeting in December. A particular resident whose first name happens to be Harvey started to speak, and she interrupted him and said, excuse me, Henry, do we really have to have public comment at this meeting? So, it was on the agenda, it was part of the agenda, and it was just, well, okay. I understand that you can't look at these videos, but the behavior is just unacceptable.
But if you do have the opportunity, please, for entertainment purposes, feel free to watch those videos. Thank you.
Thank you both. And I believe that Kathleen Brandt had her hand raised next.
Yes, Kathleen Brandt, Scioto Township. I do want to address each one of these items in the petition. And I also want to state that Trustee Vogel's response, her written response, is vague and unclear. She doesn't really state any training she's had, et cetera. But I'll go through each one of them. So number one, not familiar with state regulations. She has repeatedly, and this is early in board meetings, questioned why she needed to state her remote location. That was clarified by Clerk Flintoff, that it is a state regulation, and she asked to see that, to have it sent to her. So she's aware of this. I believe that was in January or December. Number two, this is about being aware of policies. Let's make sure I'm correct on that. Oblivious to requirements of OMA. Our residents have repeatedly provided in public comments the requirements of OMA, in particular, certain aspects of it. As recently as October the 12th, I myself educated the 5 board members that voted to delay approving public meetings that they were in violation of this act, specifically chapter 15.256 titled meetings. I specifically educated them on that section, and they still voted to delay. And now we have upwards of 10 meeting minutes that have not been approved. The OMA says that those must be approved in the following meeting, and if there are corrections, then the corrections occur and they need to be approved following that. I'm paraphrasing, but I read the exact language of the OMA. So that's recent. I think people addressed item number 3. Item number 4, specifically, it is allowed in the OMA. It is directly called out that chat is allowed in OMA meetings. There should be a procedure for it, but it is allowed. It's not correct to just say that it's not allowed and we just ignore them. And to my knowledge, one resident was in attendance at that session remotely and has direct knowledge of what Trustee Vogel said. So that evidence could be acquired, and it probably should be. Rude to board members and citizens. I will call out a meeting early on. Again, I think this was in January. If needed, I can provide the dates. There's a presentation by Dan Bicknell on the Gelman situation. It's very technical information. He had a very nice technical presentation, and Trustee Vogel interrupted a scientist in the middle of his presentation to ask him, how much longer is this going to go on? I am paraphrasing, but I think I got the language pretty correct. And she did that more than once. She said, you are over the 20-minute time limit that you thought this would take. That is very disrespectful to a citizen who is knowledgeable, who is a scientist, who is trying to help Scioto Township manage a disastrous environmental concern. She constantly interrupts the clerk, and the moderator does not provide any guidance that that's inappropriate by the rules. That's a constant situation. I could probably cite 10 meetings if you would like the evidence. I know that you're not going to get that today, but everything I am stating is factual. I can back it up. And I do not believe that Trustee Vogel has given any facts. Wait, I have one more, and this is in regard to topic number one, not familiar with regulations. In Trustee Vogel's statement, she said that it's subjective, that no one knows how many meetings, how many sessions she has attended, how much education she has done. Okay, here's a factual comment. On September the 28th, there was discussion about renewing the license or affiliation with the Michigan Township Association's organization. There's an annual fee. There was dialogue about the benefits of MTA and the training sessions that they offered. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but I could get transcripts on this. What Trustee Vogel stated was that she had watched 2 of the videos of the Scioto Township Governance Academy. I believe there are about 10 of those. She directly stated she watched 2 of those. I don't believe she said which ones they were. And she also said that she was unable to attend MTA sessions because she was not in the loop for when they occurred, or, and maybe that was an access constraint. I don't know, but she stated that she was not able to attend trainings from the MTA. And if you'd like transcripts, I can make those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brandt. And Jillian Kay has her hand raised. Could you identify your full name?
Yes, good afternoon. This is Jillian Carey, Scioto Township resident. I have been heavily involved in the township, beginning with the garbage fiasco. We're not going to get into that. Today is about the factual, or the wording, the language of the recall petition. I am looking at Jane Vogel's, the petition, the recall petition language for Trustee Vogel, excuse me. I am the one that she tried to eliminate my chat comment in the TAP meeting. Suzanne Flowers has been excellent in this TAP meeting. She's has worked with government for a long time, and she was trying to educate Jane. This is all recorded. Was trying to educate Trustee Vogel about chat, public comments, and how her government department that she works for, I'm sorry, Suzanne, I don't remember what that is, but how everything is included, public comments, chat, correspondences in their minutes, because they want the public to be involved. I was recording the meeting. I stopped the recording when the meeting had ended. And then I received emails and text messages from residents that were still in the meeting stating, oh my gosh, Jane Vogel is throwing a fit she doesn't want your chat comment in there. She doesn't like it. So I emailed Jane saying, Jane, listen, I heard, Trustee Vogel, I heard that you were trying to eliminate my chat comment. I said, that is a violation of the First Amendment and Open Meetings Act. And she came back with an email accusing me of spreading false narratives and serious misinformation. And she did not have any facts whatsoever. She said it was factual, but she had or talked with other people, and this is what she had heard. So she was coming back. I said that I would get back with her, and I did. I don't know how many pages, but I believe it was 20 pages full of evidence to back up what I had, my chat, and also to pull apart what she said and her accusations towards me. So not only that I was flabbergasted. And she also included 17 different emails, including some of those were groups, to make me look bad. That's fine, because I have evidence of what I had said. So looking at this recall petition and the language, and the language is supposed to be factual. How can we, and I understand, I'm looking at some of this and we could pull it apart and make it, shorter and whatnot, but, glaringly obvious to the requirements of the OMA. Well, that's not, she's, by eliminating chat comments, then that is a violation of the OMA. So if she knows the requirements, she wouldn't not have done that. Also, there's another, excuse me, is somebody else talking?
If you're not the person with the floor, please mute your device.
Yes.
Thank you. So I spoke during a board meeting public comment time, and I don't remember exactly what I said. I keep records of everything. And Trustee Jerome, it wasn't just my comment. There were two other people in that meeting. And then the meeting before, there was another resident that had spoke, and he wanted to change our language because he said it was subjective. And so there was a vote, and Trustee Bogle voted to change our language. Now, if she was factual and knew about and very solid in the Open Meetings Act, she would have voted no, knowing that was a violation of the First Amendment and Michigan Open Meetings Act. Regularly insults fellow board members and is rude to township citizens. Her attack on Clerk Jessica Flintoff from it was the second meeting that she began of her attacking Clerk Jessica Flintoff, and it continues. It's awful. It's getting to the point where we think there's some type of bias because Clerk Flintoff is who she is. Now, in rude to township citizens, interrupting Harvey Summers during his public comment and saying, why do we have to have public comments? And attorney Jim Fink jumped on, this was all on Zoom, jumped on and said, because it's statute. Now, if she had educated herself, she would have known better. She constantly rolls her eyes, sighs. She even sighed the other day when she was her video was blank, but we could still hear her. And somebody was talking and she went, like she was annoyed. This is unacceptable behavior. It's just amazing. So if this language is too broad or whatnot, okay, fine. But as far as the facts go, it's true. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see that David Reed and Pat Stein have the hand raised. I don't know if it's just because they didn't put the hand down or if you want to talk again.
Wasn't there another hand?
There was a hand,
okay, never mind. It's
but I thought she hadn't brought hers down. So
yeah, okay, got it.
Reed or Ms. Stein, did you wish to speak again?
Yeah, unfortunately, in the beginning of the meeting, I had everything all set up ready to show the videos. And I understand Ed has allowed me to show the videos now, but I had a problem with my computer and I had to switch computers. So the video is not on the computer we're on right now. So I was trying to, I can try to log in from my other computer. If you can give me a few minutes, and if someone else has a comment, I'd let them go ahead. Please let them go ahead.
David, I communicated with you when you sent that email that it was possible, but as you heard from the chair, videos are not being accepted for display at this meeting.
Okay.
If we were a fact-finding investigative body, I certainly would understand that. But as I said before, if we see snippets, then other people are going to want us to see other parts, and we will never get to the conclusion unless we watch every piece of video and read every minute of every meeting. So was there anything further you wanted to add?
I do. I understand that the letters from the officers have been posted, and I'm wondering if you can post the information that I sent you, Ed, or at least the documents, if not the videos.
I believe those already have been, right?
No, they were just sent as the meeting started, when we understood that we couldn't show them. We couldn't share the screen for us to show them. So David emailed them to your office.
Yeah, all attachments that were not videos are posted at on the recall page, which is accessible at washtenaw.org/elections, and then select recall activity.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
I apologize. I interrupted, and because we're in the public comment part. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What you're saying is that has happened since you received David's document while we were in the meeting here. Ed?
Yes, I received them while the meeting was occurring and posted them on the website.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Rob Pattinson.
Thank you. Rob Pattinson, Scioto Township. I'm looking at the Washtenaw County website, and the original posted material is there. The additional posted material is not yet up, just as a bit of information for you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Reed, again?
Sorry. There was one last thing, and it has to do with the removing of the chat from the minutes. I believe it was July 14th meeting minutes of TAP were attached to the August 11th, I believe, agenda for the TAP meeting. Excuse me, the minutes were attached to the agenda. The agenda was approved, the minutes were approved, and then at the end of the August meeting, somehow, mysteriously, the chat was removed from the August or from the July minutes. So if you look at the July minutes of the July meeting, there is no chat. But if you look at the August agenda with the minutes attached, they're there. So somehow someone was told to delete those chats. And I understand it was a comment from Trustee Vogel, but that's a he said, she said. So I understand it can't be factual, but the fact remains is the chat was in the agenda and it's not in the minutes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Were there any other hands raised? Mr. Pattinson, I'm not sure if you want to speak again or if you just didn't unraise your hand.
Yes, please. I'd like to speak again.
Yes, sir.
I was the witness at the meeting where the chat issue was raised, where Trustee Vogel was adamant that it not be included. And there followed with a discussion with Ms. Flowers about other processes for recording minutes and recording public interaction. And on August 26th, I was able to download the minutes for the July 14th meeting before they were finalized, and the chat section of the minutes was there. And then on September 15th, I downloaded the minutes again, and the minutes had been removed. The chat section had been removed from the minutes in the final version. So I'm the person who was able to document that throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anyone else with their hand raised? I don't know, Ed, if you can see any more than I can.
There are there is no one else currently.
Okay. Then I'll close the public participation on this item and turn it over to our commissioners. And I saw that Catherine McClary has her hand raised.
So I just wanted to just mention, because it's very clear, it appears to be just tremendous pain here among a lot of people, but we are not the group that needs to be convinced. We simply vote on language to be clear, and the people that need to be convinced are the public when they're voting on a recall. So we will post all of the materials, probably not the videos because those are posted at SIO, but we'll post the materials on our website as part of our committee responsibilities. But my experience is the public they're not going to have a lot of time to watch videos. They're going to want to just have some specific information. So that was really what I wanted to say earlier about the videos. And I did lose my train of thought on that. I apologize. I welcome all of the work that everybody has put into this. I did also, since we're voting on the trustee Vogel petition, just express my sorrow also to trustee Vogel for the pain. I would move that the petition is not of sufficient clarity. I think that there are a number of areas in which it's not only vague, but subjective, but it's also mean. And I think that becomes a description or an example of the pain here. And I found it very, I tried to put myself in the place of a voter reading something like this. I just think it was very mean. And I did move, I think, maybe not, to find it not to be of sufficient clarity.
And I will second the motion to find the petition of not sufficient clarity.
Okay. Are there any other comments that you'd like to make before I call the vote? There being no other comments, all those in favor of voting that this recall petition is not of sufficient factuality and clarity to submit to the voters, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Treasurer McClary, I think you were muted.
I think I was. I vote aye. Thank you.
Okay, so that makes it unanimous. And I echo what Treasurer McClary has said, that, and also Clerk Kestenbaum, that there appears to be a lot of angst, and I'm sorry for everyone's pain and anguish. I hope that you'll be able to somehow find a good path forward. And I do want to just mention that in our county, we have peacemaking. And the Dispute Resolution Center is available for neighborhood, governmental, whatever type of peacemaking. And you might want to consider that, because somehow we all have to live together. So with that, I'll move on to item number 7, new business.
One quick point.
Yes, Mr. Reed.
Commissioner McClary, I take exception for you apologizing to Jane for the pain. We all have been put through pain. The clerk has been put through pain. Residents have been put through pain, not just Jane. And I understand Jane has been put through pain, but we all have. So my second point is, you open at 9 o'clock in the morning, Ed? I think we'll be there on
8:30 on Monday.
8:30 on Monday. Okay. We'll be there with refreshed petitions. Thank you very much.
Okay. So moving on to new business, is there any other new business? You know, I saw a hand raised, Carolyn Altamir. I didn't see that hand raised before, and it went down, but now it's back up. I don't know if she wanted to speak, but we're on new business.
I'm here.
Okay. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to, Your Honor, I just wanted to underscore for the trustees that are, the SIO trustees that are in attendance, please, I encourage you to take the judge's recommendation under very heavy advisement. There have been many times where perhaps engaging a mediator or third party to be able to resolve some of this conflict and come up with a better working model has been suggested. I very strongly urge you as a SIO resident, please take her up on this. Please engage in something like this to mend this rift. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as a SIO Township resident myself, I would certainly second that. I'm very concerned about SIO Township's governance and all of the things that have been talked about today and have been, these things all trouble me. And I don't have a path forward, but I hope that the people who are involved will find that path.
Thank you. And Ms. Altamir, I don't know if you had your hand raised again or just didn't unraise it.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so there being no other new business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for your participation. This meeting is adjourned.
Larry, if I may butt in for just a moment. This is Rob Pattinson from Elderwise. Mom
Yes.
told me to tell you hi.
Oh, hello.
It's very good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
We sincerely miss our Elderwise fix of your panels with the other guys.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Take care, buddy.